Okay, if you're looking at the startup screen and you still see something that says either Revit sample house or something like that, just open it there. If you don't see it there, because what's happened is like the last time it was open was several times ago. Like this list is always like the 4 most recent things, so maybe we'll roll off the list. If you don't see it there, what you can do is under the open, you can go to this location. They actually store a copy of this inside of its C, program files, and then the Autodesk Revit folder. So let me show you where that is, just in case you're having trouble locating that. If not, I could also put that out on the L drive if we want to do that too, but it's under C. Let me see if I can find it here, not under My Documents. Program Files, Autodesk, and then let me see if I can find it. Oh, there's Revit 2013, Program, and somewhere way down in here you'll find Samples, and you'll finally find under there, oh, what is it? It's RAC Basic Sample Projects. That's Revit Architecture Basic Sample Project. You can open it that way too. Again, let me just give you the whole path there. So it's Program Files, Autodesk, and Revit either 2012 or 2013. Yours might be a little bit different. Program samples, and you finally get on down there and you can see it. Okay, good. In any case, all we're really doing now is just opening one to play with, so it doesn't really matter that much which one it is. Let me go ahead and open under samples. I'm going to open up this Revit Basic Architectural Sample. Open it up, and we'll take a look at it. And that's all we want to do is get started by taking a look at an existing one so we can see how it works. Okay, let's see if we can all get something like that open on our screen. And again, if you're having a lot of trouble finding that, I'll put one out there on the L drive for you. Yes? How about go to Revit Architecture 2012 for you, because we're still on this machine, and say Program, and then under Samples, and then do RAC Sample Project, Basic Sample Project. Actually, the one right here. It's going to open. Go back and do it again. Okay. You'll be fine. Now, as you're looking at the screen, you might notice that my screen may look a little bit different than your screen, and that's okay. It's a real easy thing. You can sort of choose how you want to have things appear on the screen. When you tend to open Revit brand new out of the box, it'll look like this. See if I can get it to pop back the way it does by default. Not like that. It's underneath there. And I have the hardest time putting this thing back. There. Ah! Okay. Yours probably looks something like this. It has the properties palette as well as the browser. We're seeing all these views one on top of each other. Now, just by preference, I like to go ahead and do the properties palette and I put it over there just so I can see more of it. In this view over here, you only get a couple lines. It's a little squishy. It's hard to see what's going on. So what I'll tend to do is I'll just drag properties over and put them on the right-hand side. And again, don't worry. It's just sort of a matter of preference. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. But I'll just drag that over and put it over on the right-hand side. And again, that's just the way I like to work. Nothing special about that in terms of what's going on. But as you're looking at this, actually, do most people have that thing open? Or something that looks somewhat similar? Yes?
Is it error?
Yes, what kind of an error are you getting?
An error software by drawing content.
Oh, that's interesting. I believe that what's happening there, that's probably has to do with the graphics display part. Okay, so sheet, let's see what's going on. Yeah, running up to the sheet close, that's it there. Usually if you get that error, display error, what happens is they have a graphics display part on you is not compatible with something called hardware acceleration. And let me show you how to fix that. Let's say if we close that. Before you open it, I'll show everyone how to change. And we can do that on yours. Not everyone will have to do this, just some people will. If you're getting some graphic display errors because it doesn't understand your card, here's what you're going to do. Again, only do this if you get sort of a graphic display error. What you can do is under the application menu, you open that up. Come on, Mr. Application Menu. You'll find there's a choice. These are all the previous files I've opened recently. You'll find there's an options button under there, so you can choose the options. And amongst the many different options that are available for you, okay, there's this whole notion of, it's under graphics, whether or not you can use hardware acceleration. So what happens is, if your machine has a known video card, mine's even an unknown one because it's kind of like, you know, older than like the version of Arrow that's in here, you could be experiencing some problems if it's unknown. What you can do if you want to like turn that off is right here where it says use the hardware acceleration. Just go ahead and turn that off and say okay, and then try reopening the file. And generally we'll clear that up. But everyone's machine is just a little bit different, so if you are having trouble, you can turn that off. What that's going to do is just when it's rendering the window, it may be a little slower, especially if you're doing rendering views. Okay, but it shouldn't make a big difference. Just go ahead and turn that off, and you should be okay.
You have to turn it off.
No, if you're not having troubles, leave it on.
Okay.
Yeah, no troubles, leave it on. Get the full power of what you can. Okay, so we're looking at yes, okay, good. If you're looking at something that looks like this, let's talk about what this model is and how you sort of do with it. So here's this model. It's actually a little 3D model of the building. If you want to start playing around and start seeing it from different perspectives, for example, there's this thing called the view cube, and you can click on different corners of the view cube, and it will rotate the 3D model around. Kind of like I was doing with that little house model a second ago. You can return to the home view. There's a little home button up there to get back to there. Okay. You can look at it in terms of these 3D views. You can also look at the model in terms of any of these other views, like floor plan views, there's some 3D views of elevations here. So why don't you try even opening a few of those? Like for example, I'm going to open up the floor plan level 1. Take a look at it. Now, although this looks like a separate drafted view, something that was just drafted to sort of indicate what the house is like, independent of that 3D view, it actually is the same model. It's just two different models on it. In fact, what you're going to get used to is this notion that we don't really do any drafting now. What we do is we have a 3D model, and we just position cameras in the model, looking at different perspectives to create all the different views you want. So a floor plan view, just so you know, is a camera which is pointing straight down. It's cut at 4 feet above the floor and looking straight down. That's how we create floor plans. We can adjust that. If we want to go lower, if we want to go higher, we can do that depending on what we want to see in the floor plan view. But it's just a straight on down view. A ceiling plan view is very similar. It's just looking up instead. Okay, so again, 4 feet looking up at the ceiling instead. If we're looking at lights and terminal registers and things like that, smoke detectors, things like that on the ceiling. If you switch to one of the elevation views, for example, the north or the south elevation, you'll see that you're looking at, it's one of the dead-on views from the outside of the building. Okay. And again, these are all just sort of generated the same. Now, let us do this, because we have several different views open. You may have a lot of views open. Let's try opening several different views together and see how they all work as one thing. And how we can do that is, up here at the top of the screen is this thing called a ribbon, which has all the tools and commands we want to work with. If you click on the View tab right over there, so Views right here, and you click on that, we'll get a different set of tools available to us. These are all things that are related to the view we're looking at right now. One of the tools that's available is something that tiles the windows. Just put several of the windows open at the same time, kind of parallel to each other. And it is actually over here in the Windows section. It's right there. If you click on that, or you can see what the command is here. It's tile windows. You can sort of tile the windows. Now, just so I'll give you a note about shortcuts, especially for folks who are used to typing things, as opposed to choosing from the ribbon. Almost all the commands have some sort of equivalent. Like tile windows has WT, or window tile. So you can type WT and it'll have the same effect as though you selected it from the menu or from the ribbon. Okay, so what I have now is actually 4 different views. I have a floor plan view, I've got a couple different elevations, and I have a 3D view. You can't see very well what's going on here because things are a little panned out of shape. Let me go ahead and I'll close. Oh, which one do I want to close? I'll close that one. And I'll do window tile again just so I see a little more of the windows.
What's the short effect?
Oh, WT. Now let us do this, because what I want to show is really how things are related to each other, you know, as we go working like in the different windows. What I want to do is, well, let me do this. I'm just going to zoom up that window again. We get to that default 3D window again. Bring it up. Since my screen's so limited right now, I'm going to make that the primary window. Over here on the side, you'll also have a couple different tools for doing things like zooming in or kind of using the navigation wheel. If you want to, and you have a mouse on your screen, well, let me show you how you do it without the mouse, and we'll talk about how you can do it. If you take this tool and you say zoom to a region, then you select the region you want to zoom to. I'm going to pull that up. Okay. For zooming, why don't you go ahead and try this if you want to. Let me see if I can actually do that with my mouse. Where did my mouse go? There it is. Okay. If you have one of these, a mouse that has a wheel on it, okay, don't worry if you don't, but if you do have a mouse that has a wheel on it, you can do this. Okay. With the mouse that has the wheel, if you roll the wheel up or you roll the wheel down, that'll zoom in or zoom out. Okay, so you can try that. Yes?
My screen just
Okay. Sure. I didn't know that offhand. That's kind of interesting. Yes, that's just the black screen of ambiguity. I don't know what that is. It's kind of funny because I'm just trying to see if it like slapped or if it did anything funny.
I was feeling this.
Yeah, just right in the middle of doing something. That's weird. Yeah. About if for like for the next half hour or so, why don't you just follow along with your neighbor and sort of see if we can kind of make it work. Yeah. I just don't know what's going on here. Okay. We'll try to get this worked out. Okay. So someone's leaning on a keyboard. Ah. That's what that noise is. Okay, with zooming, the idea is if you roll up or you roll down, this happens. It's sort of what I'm doing is I'm just rolling the wheel up or down. That's kind of a good way to kind of get around. Another thing you can do that's really kind of good is, there's this notion of panning around in the model. Panning you can do a couple different ways. You can move the thumbs, so I can go through and move these arrows up and down, or move the scroll bars up and down. Another way you can pan around just to change your view is as follows. You can hold down that button. So on the mouse over here with a little button in there, if you hold down that wheel and you just push left or right, okay, as opposed to rolling it, it'll pan up or down and kind of do that for you. So it's sort of another way to go moving around. Let me give you the third way you can kind of get around the other too. There's all these different shortcuts you can do there. There's something called the steering wheel. Let me show you how it works. The steering wheel is right here. It's above the little zoom tool. And if you choose it, you get this little guy that looks like this. And depending upon what area you've hovered over, whether you're hovering over pan or orbit or zoom, you get a different behavior. So if I'm hovered over panning, and I'm not sure if you can see, panning's kind of green right now. I can then pan. Whereas if I hover over zoom, I'll be zooming in and out. So panning versus zooming. Okay. Another one that's ever so popular to play around with here, that's actually probably one of your favorite things to play with very soon, is orbit. It's like that orbit. Orbit is all about the notion of, if you choose orbit and hold down, you'll basically pivot around something. Kind of move it into view. So why don't you go ahead and play with those for just a second. See if you can sort of do a little pan, do a little zoom, do a little orbit. It's hard to...
Why is the steering wheel following you around?
Oh, well, if you want to get rid of it. Okay, if you've got the steering wheel following you and it's bothering you and you really don't want to see it, you've got a little close box over here. You can get rid of it that way. The other way is you can say Shift W. That's another way to kind of either get it or get it to go away. Yes, sometimes it's sticky. It's like gum that's on the bottom of your foot and it just won't go away. Okay, so you can go ahead and navigate around in this view and kind of start moving around. But let me show you where the beauty of the BIM model starts to come. For example, we're looking at this model. It's in 3D. We're doing okay. Someone's designed this building. If we want to start changing things around about the model, here's how we do it. If you choose an object, for example, just move your mouse on over and choose that door, for example, that door that's sitting down there on the first floor. Notice a couple different things. It highlights in blue over here in the model. If you actually have several windows open, if that door is visible in the other view, you'll see it's actually being highlighted there too. But what I'll do just to kind of show you that is, let me tile the windows again. And I'll just keep the these two windows. Okay, the 3D view. And over here I'm going to take this this is the floor plan view. Okay. You might notice that it's actually highlighted in blue in both those views. It's selected over here, it's selected over in the floor plan. Okay. You might also notice that it's actually showing up in the properties palette right now. So we basically have 3 different views of the same object right now. Kind of a floor plan view, and a 3D view, as well as just sort of a properties view. And anything we do is really going to affect all 3 of those views. So for example, if you do something as simple as, oh, try just moving that doorway just by grabbing it and kind of sliding it to the left or right. What I did is I just moved it over a little bit. Okay. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it actually is going to move in the 3D view too. So anything I do in any view is actually going to show up in all the views. Because you really only have one 3D object. Okay. All these views are just rendering that object. So again, I'm going to take that view, I'm going to drag that doorway down a little bit further over here. Notice it's also going to update in the 3D view over here. You have the elevation view open, you'll see it also is moving around in the elevation at the same side too. Because really, there really is just one 3D object and you're rendering these images. Now, other cool things you can do, we can move things around. If you want to move that off the floor, you can do that. For example, if I take that and I'll zoom in over here and I move it up the wall, well, let me move up. It looks like it won't because it's sort of located on the first floor. Let me try putting in something called the sill height. This is in metric, so I'm going to basically make it say 2 meters off the ground. Is that 2 millimeters right now? Yeah, it was just 2 millimeters. Let me put 2,000 in there. Okay. You'll notice it moved up over here. It actually disappeared from the floor plan view right now. Let's think about why that might be. Why would it disappear from the floor plan view? Exactly. It's that 4 feet thing. 2 meters up, it's up so high that basically it's above our head right now. It's above the cutting plane, so we're not seeing it right now. It's still there. It just means that in this view, if we want to see it, we need to move our cutting plane a little bit higher so we can see it. Okay? So we can move things in any view. Let me go ahead and put it down to 1,000. And when I apply that, hopefully it'll show up again. Notice that in the floor plan view, it really doesn't make much of a distinction about whether you're cutting it in the middle of the door or down at the bottom of the door. That's just the way we sort of drag those things. So it doesn't look very different. Right? Here's something else you might want to try doing. How about over here in the properties palette, hold down, that's actually a menu. Let's try changing it to a different door. So for example, pull down under that properties palette and let's see what else we got. I got a bifold 4-panel door, I got a single glass door. Let me try the single glass door first. Maybe we should put that down on the ground. It sort of looks a little odd sitting up there a meter off. Okay, you'll see that it's sort of changing in the 3D view as well as in the 2D view. Now, one of the nice things about 3D objects is they really understand an awful lot about their functioning. So, for example, for this door over here, you'll notice there's some little, because I have it selected, there's automated glyphs, or I call them little widgets that will change the behavior of the door. So, for example, right now, that door is swinging out, and it has its hinge over on the right-hand side, on looking out. If you want to change anything like that, what you can do is actually just click on these guys and change the swing of the door, or make it an in-swing door, whatever it is. The nice thing is, as we're working with 3D objects, we can manipulate them as 3D objects. We're not going in and mirroring the lines around. We're actually just sort of changing the functionality, and then what will happen is the door will actually be very precise. It's pretty hard to see over here at this scale, but if there's a difference between the inside and the outside of the door in terms of the framing details and the amount of trim, those are going to be reflected too. Okay. So we can go ahead and kind of just have a single door there. We can go, for example, and have, like a bifold door. That's more like a closet door on the inside of a house. May not make any sense, but we can have it in our model. That's one thing I'll warn you about. Good models do not go ahead and assure sanity. They don't go ahead and make sure you make sensible design decisions. For the most part, it'll let you make design decisions that aren't necessarily the most advisable. You can run little checks on them later to say whether or not that makes sense. Like, do you have doors that are conflicting with other things? Do we have swings that are sort of interfering, or do you have the proper clearance for ADA requirements and things like that? You can run those as checks, but by default, it'll let you do pretty much whatever you want to do. Okay, so we can go through and look at, just changing different objects around. For example, let me just go and open up that elevation view since, is it even in here? Nope. Let me open the elevation. I always have to remember which side it is because it's not south. I think it's the west elevation on this house. Nope. Looks like it's actually going to be the east elevation. There it is. Let me tile those windows. So you're seeing here, even in the elevation view, those same sort of changes. So it doesn't really matter where I change it. I can change it in the elevation view. I can change it in the floor plan view. Wherever I change it, the change is going to be reflected everywhere. And that's really, if nothing else, that is the most, the essence of what you're supposed to be learning this week, is that really everything is really fundamentally a building object, and that we can store information about the building object in this properties palettes and access that. So it's really a big database. This is really just a 3D representation of the database, just kind of making it understandable to you, but all the information is back here. And in terms of this information, this is mostly kind of architectural information, but as we start thinking ahead to where we're going, we can start storing structural information about the size of the beams, the materials of the beams. We can start storing construction information, like a task ID that this certain building component is associated with, a certain part of the workway construction you want to be associated with. We can store information in this database and then use it as a way to communicate between all the different disciplines. Because that's what it's really all about, is really, the BIM model is really just a central place that resolves in 3D spatial geometry, like all the information about what we want to have built, okay? And then we can use that to coordinate the information with all the different disciplines. That's kind of the heart of where we're going. Okay. So you can start by just sort of playing around with basic models like this. We're going to learn how to build these models in just a few minutes. But let me kind of show you just a couple other views just to get you going in terms of what we have. We have about 15 minutes left in this first session. There are not only these elevation views, there are also things like section views. And so for people who have been drawing and stuff like that, the whole notion of either drawing a section view or really ultimately doing a perspective view tends to be, that's where it starts to get a little bit tricky. Take a little work to generate those things. So let's kind of show you how that works. I'm going to close those and just get back to my floor plan. I'm going to zoom this in to fit. It's under the view menu here. If I find the zooms, where are they? But it's ZF is the easiest way for me to remember. It's zoom to fit. I can even find where that is because I just type that one all the time. Or I could actually do it over here. I could say zoom to fit right there. it'll put it back in. So for example, I got this nice floor plan view, everything's looking good. One of the classic things we have problems with when it's time to go through and build is things like the relationship between the stairway and what's above it and what's below it. Or even, there's actually a big balcony that's overhanging the space and understanding how that's going to relate to structural elements. You need to sort of understand that in kind of a, vertically as well. So sections are really good for doing that. When you want to draw sections, the way it works and the way it's going to work with most of the views we want to create is in Revit, if you go to the View tab, so again, to the View tab, everyone left there, you can go through and choose something called the Section tool. And if you choose the Section tool, what you do is just come on here, let's go into our model, and if I want to cut from left to right, I draw a section from left to right. Okay. You'll see what it's showing me is the directionality of the section and how far out what the extents are going to be. I can flip that if I want to look in the other direction. But when I say create that section, what happens is it actually adds a new section below here in the list. So section 1, 2, section 3 is the new one there. When you say section 3, open it up. There's a section through the building. And again, this is fully operable in that if you want to go through and change anything, for example, in this building right here, if I want to change that one, instead of being the single flush door to being a single glass door, or if I want to change that to be some sort of like a bifold door, I can do that. And what's going to happen is it's going to change it not only here in the section view, it's also changing in the floor plan view. It's all changing in the relationship between each other. You'll see this section view actually even starts to show, you'll see there's little bits of structural information there. There's all the joists that are showing up in the model. As well as up at the top, we're starting to see the bigger beams that are in the model too. And the furniture. A little bit of everything's loaded into that single model. Okay, so section views are very easy to generate in terms of what's going on. Let's go back to that 3D view for a second. Now, for sections, okay, sections tend to be a very nice way to work, and we like to work with sections because they kind of give us an awful lot of information. We have this big model of the outside of the building here that we're looking at here, this kind of 3D global view of what's going on. Yeah, you might say, hey, I'd really like to get kind of my section and my 3D view together. So the 3D section would be awfully nice to explain what's going on. So there's a couple ways we can do that. This building actually has something turned on called the section box. Okay. It's hidden from us right now just because it's trying to keep the view very clean, but we can turn that on and see the section box and start manipulating it. Let me show you how we do that. So I can tell it actually has a section box because you can sort of see the ground plane here. See how it's kind of like cut off at the edges? That's the section box right there. That's the boundary of the section box right now. But let me do this. Oh, there's this little guy down here. It looks like a little light bulb, which lets us reveal hidden elements. You can see there actually is this big old box hiding. I can say unhide it by going up and saying, again, let me do that again. We'll say that what we want to do is down at the bottom, where all these little appearance controls are, we can say reveal the hidden ones. Then you can choose an element, and you can either toggle it or unhide it if it's already, let me hide it, and then you can unhide it again. Oops. You can take something, say unhide it, or reveal it. But if you do that, again, don't worry if that's got went by a little quick. We'll show you that in more detail a little bit. You got this guy here, there's the section box around there. Here's what you can do. You can take that box, and it has little handles on the side. And you can push and pull on those handles. And as you push and pull those handles in, you'll actually be cutting through the building. So you can orbit around and kind of take a look at it in true 3D. So you can do that in terms of the left and right sides. You could also do that if you want to. Like sometimes when I'm designing, I like to scalp the building. I like to take the roof off. So I can push that on down and give more of a view that kind of lets you sort of see inside the building more like a dollhouse. Okay, so you can go through and do things like that. Again, we'll play around with that a lot more in terms of how to use that to your advantage as we keep going. Another type of view that a lot of people like to create is really more of a, well, it's like a perspective view. And I'm going to talk about how you can do that. So for example, here's the default 3D view. It's the one that says 3D, actually it's the section box right now. We have the section box turned off and turned on there. But if we choose this, let me go ahead and kind of spread this out or put the roof back on. Okay, we'll orbit that around. Let's take a look at this. Now, if you've been doing drafting, you might recognize that this 3D view that's happening around here, this is more of what's called an axiometric view. It's like basically everything that we measure is true to the same dimension. So the height of the building here, this building has slope here, so it wouldn't be true. The height of 10 feet here and the height of 10 feet there would actually be the same on both sides because there's no foreshortening, there's no notion of perspective in this view. So these kinds of views are very useful for a lot of things that we want to do. If you were thinking about doing more of an architectural rendering or just trying to understand it more from the human's perspective, you might want to think about doing more of a camera perspective, something more like you walked up with your little camera and kind of got a true shot of the building. And how that looks is like this. If I say, for example, let me go to level 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a camera in a floor plan view, just indicate where the location of the camera is and point to what I want the camera to see. So I just went to level 1. Then what I'll do is under the View tab again, I'll say under 3D Views, let me choose the Camera tool. And then I can put it outside the building and point back at what I do want to see. Okay, and then I have more of this 3D camera view. So now what is this? It's very similar. Let me even kind of shade it for you so you can sort of see it. It really is the same sort of camera views as the other ones. It's just like the floor plan's a camera, the ceiling plan's a camera, all the elevations are cameras. They're just more dead on with no foreshortening. This one actually has this recession back to some vanishing lines this way and a vanishing point this way too. So just have a camera view, and there's really no difference. Although it's a camera view, all the same things apply. There's the door. You want to take the door and change it to the bifold door? Super. Go ahead and do that. We've just changed it everywhere. There's really no difference in its language, which type of view you're coming at, because the building model is the same. It's really just an issue of what kind of camera you're looking at it with. Okay. What you can do with these camera views, there's a lot of different things. One thing that people like to do is render them. Just let me show you that as we sort of close out here. I could say, for example, let's render that. I'll turn that up a little bit. And what we'll do is say that, hey, in addition to all the building objects here, we understand about the location, what the sun is going to be like in this space. Let's let that finish running. Oh, it is under the View tab. It's like, it says render. It's like right about here in the View tab. Let me push that out of the way for you.
Or you can do it with the teapot at the bottom.
Yes, that's another way to get to it quickly. It's down here at the bottom. There's a little teapot guy there. Let that finish for a second. Okay, we get sort of a rendered view of what's going on. Now, this one's not very high quality in terms of what's going on. We could ratchet up the quality. But what I want to demonstrate about this is really that for all these different objects, there's a material assigned to them, and that material has some properties. It has thermal properties, it has mass properties, it also has appearance properties. So how that would actually render photorealistically is one of the properties that you can use to do things like generate renderings. So, I don't know. Let's go ahead and I think that's probably a pretty good place to sort of stop for now. We got off to sort of a slow start as we got going. But how about this? Really, what would be really kind of cool to do between now and 2 when you come on back is, if you don't have it yet installed on your computer, you can go ahead and have it completely installed and get it so that you're independent of the whole workstation has to be. That'd be super. And then if you want to, just go ahead and open up this file and play around within the different views. Try moving different things. Just try changing this around a little bit. So for example, I'd do things like, go to the floor plan view and try things like, take outdoors. Or try moving around walls. Or try moving around the furniture. Or even swapping out the furniture with different types of things. Okay, but get used to the idea that there are different objects. Try selecting different things, see what type of object shows up over here, see what kind of properties you have and options available for moving those different things. And if you want to get started where we're going to be going, even think about starting to create your own things. Where we're going to be going next after the break is, like, we'll go to the wall tool, and this is what we're going to do together this afternoon, is learn how to take things like walls and basically to start drawing our own. Or putting doors into the walls. Or putting more windows in the walls, whatever it is that we want to do. So if you want to just sort of get a feel for it, you work with that existing model, just start to see what sort of information is available. Something we haven't even talked about at all so far is the whole notion of schedules, but if you want to open them up and take a look, what happens there is all these doors and walls and windows, actually it looks like there aren't any in this project, so I'll leave you out of that one right now. But we can basically schedule all these different objects and start to create door or window schedules or different tables full of elements that need to be ordered that you need as part of the whole construction process. So that's coming too. But go ahead, see if you can get that installed, play around with it a little bit, sort of just get familiar with sort of messing around with, there's these different views that we can move around here. Understand as you choose things what happens here in the browser and start playing around with some of the things you can change. But let's just kind of go for that, because when you come on back at 2, what we're going to do is say, hey, great, now that you've sort of seen what 1 looks like, let's go ahead and it's going to be a real whirlwind. We're going to build our own little structure, put walls, doors, windows, put a roof and a floor on it, and hopefully get it on sheets. Okay, so you're going to get the whole thing real quick. Okay? So great, let's go ahead and break for now and come on back and do it.